Ladies and gentlemen, you are never truly alone. God is always with you, guiding your steps and preparing your heart for greater connections. There are moments in life when the silence feels overwhelming and the absence of people in your corner can seem like a glaring void. You may look around and wonder why others seem to have strong friendships, why they appear surrounded by people who understand them, why you feel like an island isolated and unseen. But let me remind you of this truth. Being alone does not mean you are abandoned, and being without friends does not mean you are without worth. There is a greater presence walking with you through every step of your journey, even when it feels like no one else is. God's love surrounds you in every moment, and His plans for you are far greater than what you can see right now. When you feel isolated, it can be tempting to believe the lie that you are forgotten or overlooked. It's easy to allow those thoughts to seep in, to question what's wrong with you, to wonder why things aren't clicking in your relationships. But what if this season isn't about what's missing? What if it's about what's being built within you? God doesn't waste anything. He uses every experience, every moment of quiet to prepare us for the future He has in store. Sometimes we are removed from certain relationships or kept from them for a reason. It's not because there's something wrong with us or because we're unworthy of connection. It's because God sees the whole picture. He knows the relationships that will strengthen us and the ones that may hold us back. He knows what you need to grow and what distractions need to be removed to get you there. In those times when you feel the ache of loneliness, it's not a sign of weakness, it's an invitation to draw closer to God. To let Him fill the spaces where you feel empty, to let His love remind you that you are cherished beyond measure. We often look to friendships, to other people to validate us, to make us feel seen and heard. And while human relationships are a beautiful gift, they are not the ultimate source of our identity. That comes from our Creator. When you understand that God is always with you, guiding your steps, it changes the way you view loneliness. It no longer becomes a punishment or a burden. It becomes a season of trust, a time to lean into His presence and let Him lead. God knows the connections you need, and He will bring them into your life in His perfect timing. He will align you with people who see your heart, who value your gifts, and who will walk alongside you in purpose and love. But until that time comes, He wants you to know that you're enough just as you are. You don't have to wait for friendships to feel fulfilled. You don't have to wait for others to recognize your worth. You can walk confidently today knowing that you are deeply loved and never alone. Think about the people in Scripture who felt isolated or overlooked. David alone in the fields tending sheep was preparing for the day he would a nation. Joseph, abandoned by his brothers and sitting in prison, was being positioned for a role that would save countless lives. Jesus Himself often retreated to solitude, not because He was abandoned, but because He understood the value of being alone with the Father. Your season of solitude is not a punishment, it's a process. God is refining you, preparing your heart, and aligning you with His purpose. He is teaching you to rely on Him, to find your strength and joy in Him, so that when the right people come into your life, you'll be ready. Ready to love them, support them, and build relationships that reflect His goodness. If you feel like a woman with no friends today, I want you to hear this clearly. You are seen. You are loved. You are not forgotten. God's hand is on your life, and He is guiding you even now. Trust that the connections you long for will come, but until they do, rest in the truth that His presence is more than enough. Sometimes isolation is not rejection, but preparation for the next chapter of your life. It's easy to feel disheartened when you find yourself in a season where relationships seem to slip through your fingers, when the friends you once leaned on are no longer present, or when the connections you desire just don't seem to materialize. In those moments, it can feel like the world is closing in, as though the absence of companionship is a sign that something is wrong with you. But what if, instead of seeing isolation as rejection, you began to view it as a divine step for something greater? Life has a way of pruning us, stripping away the things that no longer serve our growth or align with our purpose. It's not always comfortable, and it's certainly not easy, but it is necessary. When God prepares you for a new season, He often has to remove distractions and influences that could hinder you from stepping fully into what He's calling you to do. Isolation in this sense becomes a sacred space of time for God to work in you and through you without interference. Think about the process of refining gold. The impurities are removed in the fire so that the gold can shine brighter and be used for its highest purpose. That's what God is doing in your life during those times when you feel alone. He's removing the relationships that aren't meant to go with you into your future, the distractions that pull you away from your calling, and the noise that prevents you from hearing His voice clearly. It's natural to crave connection. We're wired for community. But not every relationship is meant to last a lifetime, and not every connection is beneficial for where you're headed. Some friendships are seasonal, serving a purpose for a specific time, but not meant to follow you into your next chapter. It doesn't mean those relationships were bad or that you were wrong to invest in them. It simply means that their role in your story is complete and now it's time for you to move forward. When you're in a season of isolation, it can feel like rejection because you're focusing on what's been removed instead of what's being built. You may wonder why certain friendships faded or why new ones haven't formed. But instead of asking why, try asking, what is God preparing me for? Shift your perspective from one of loss to one of anticipation. Trust that if He's allowing this season, it's because He's setting you up for something greater. Consider the stories of people who were isolated before stepping into their purpose. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading the Israelites out of Egypt. During that time, he wasn't surrounded by applause or companionship. He was being prepared for leadership. Jesus, too, spent 40 days in the wilderness, away from everyone before beginning His ministry. These moments of solitude weren't signs of failure. They were times of preparation, sharpening, and strengthening. In your own life, this season of isolation could be God's way of drawing you closer to Him. When you're surrounded by people, it's easy to look to them for validation, support, and direction. But when those voices are removed, you're left with the opportunity to hear God's voice more clearly. He wants to remind you of who you are, not based on the opinions of others, but rooted in His truth. This time is also an invitation to discover more about yourself. Who are you when the noise fades? What passions, dreams, and gifts have been buried under the demands of your relationships? Isolation gives you the space to reconnect with your own heart, to explore the depths of who God created you to be, and to step into your next chapter with clarity and confidence. Isolation is not the end of the story. It's a pivotal chapter in the journey. It's where transformation happens, where the foundation is laid for the blessings to come. God's plans for you are always good and His timing is always perfect. Even when it feels like you're standing still, He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail for your benefit. Trust that this season has a purpose, even if you can't see it right now. Hold on to the promise that your isolation is not a punishment or a sign of rejection. It's preparation for the incredible future that lies ahead. Embrace your own company. Your season of solitude can be a time of growth, healing, and self-discovery. In a world that often equates busyness and constant social interaction with success and fulfillment, it's easy to view time alone as a failure or a deficiency. But what if solitude is not something to fear, but rather an opportunity to embrace? What if this season where you find yourself alone is actually a gift, a sacred time for you to reconnect with yourself and uncover the treasures that lie within? Too often we rely on others to validate our worth or to distract us from the questions we're too afraid to ask ourselves. We fill our schedules, our minds, and even our hearts with relationships and activities that keep us from truly confronting who we are. But solitude, when embraced, strips away the noise and distractions, giving you the space to face yourself with honesty and grace. It's in this space that you begin to truly grow, to heal from past wounds, and to discover the unique purpose and potential within you. Think about how many times you put yourself on the back burner, prioritizing the needs and desires of others above your own. While relationships and service to others are beautiful and essential parts of life, they can sometimes lead us to neglect our own hearts. Solitude is an invitation to turn inward, to check. Solitude gives you the opportunity to bring those things to the surface, to acknowledge them, and to begin the work of healing. Healing is not a quick or easy process, but it's one of the most important gifts you can give yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when you're not distracted by the voices and expectations of others, that you can hear the whispers of your own heart. You can begin to identify the patterns and beliefs that have held you back and replace them with truth. You can let go of the pain and resentment that have weighed you down and make room for peace and joy to enter. As you heal, you also grow. Solitude provides the perfect environment for growth because it allows you to focus on yourself without interruption. This doesn't mean you become self-centered or isolated in an unhealthy way. Rather, it means you become more self-aware, more attuned to your needs, desires, and values. You begin to understand what truly matters to you and what doesn't. You gain clarity about your purpose and start to see the unique gifts and talents you bring to the world. This season of solitude is also a time of discovery. When you're alone, you have the freedom to explore new interests, hobbies, and passions that you may never have pursued otherwise. You can try new things, make mistakes, and learn without the pressure of meeting anyone else's expectations. You may discover hidden talents or rekindle old passions that you had forgotten about. These discoveries not only enrich your life, but also help you build confidence in yourself and your abilities. When you embrace your own company, you begin to realize that you are enough. You don't need a crowd of people around you to feel valued or fulfilled. You don't need constant validation from others to know your worth. Into the person you were created to be, to heal from the past, and to discover the beauty and strength that have always been within you. When you embrace your own company, you open the door to a deeper, richer, and more fulfilling life. The right relationships are worth waiting for. Trust that divine timing is perfect and purposeful. In a world where instant gratification is the norm and where connections can seem as easy to make as the click of a button, Waiting for the right people to come into your life can feel like an unbearable task. You might look around and see others effortlessly surrounded by friends, family, or partners and wonder why your own circle feels so small or incomplete. But let me remind you, the relationships that truly matter, the ones that are meant to enrich your life and align with your purpose, are always worth the wait. It's tempting to settle for what's available rather than wait for what's best. Sometimes loneliness whispers lies into our ears, telling us that we're unworthy of connection or that we'll never find the relationships we long for. In those moments, it can feel easier to cling to relationships that aren't healthy, to keep people in your life who don't truly see or value you, just to avoid the discomfort of being alone. But settling for less than God's best for your life often leads to more heartache and confusion. The truth is, the right relationships don't come on your timetable, they come on God's. He sees the bigger picture. He knows the people who are meant to walk with you in this season and the ones who will come into your life later. He knows who will encourage you, inspire you, and challenge you to grow. He knows who will celebrate your victories and stand by you in your struggles. Trusting His timing means believing that He is working behind the scenes, preparing the hearts of those who will one day be a part of your story. When you wait for the right relationships, you allow yourself the opportunity to grow into the person you're meant to be. Sometimes the delay isn't about them, it's about you. There are lessons you need to learn, healing that needs to take place, and character that needs to be developed. You might be asking God for meaningful friendships or a supportive partner, but He's using this time to shape you into the kind of person who can nurture and sustain those relationships when they arrive. Think about the process of planting a garden. You can't rush the growth of a seed. It needs time to take root to grow strong and healthy. If you try to force it, the plant may grow weak and wither before it reaches its full potential. Relationships are no different. They need the right conditions to flourish. When you wait for God's timing, you're allowing Him to cultivate the soil of your heart and the hearts of others so that when the relationship begins, it has a strong foundation. During this waiting period, it's important to focus on your own journey. Invest in yourself. Use this time to discover your passions, to pursue your dreams, and to strengthen your relationship with God. The more grounded you are in your own identity and purpose, the more likely you are to attract people who share your values and vision. When you are confident in who you are and what you bring to the table, you create space for authentic connections to form. It's also essential to go the relationships that aren't meant to go with you into the future. Sometimes we hold on to people out of fear of being alone, even when we know deep down that the relationship isn't healthy or fulfilling. Trusting divine timing means having the courage to release what's not meant for you so that you can make room for what is. It's not easy, but it's necessary. You can't fully embrace the blessings God has for you while clinging to things that are holding you back. When the right relationships come into your life, you'll see how they fit so effortlessly, how they align with your values and complement your journey. They won't drain you or make you feel small. They'll uplift you and remind you of your worth. These relationships will be marked by mutual respect, understanding, and love. They will inspire you to be the best version of yourself while accepting you exactly as you are. It may be hard to believe when you're in the waiting season, but God has already orchestrated the connections that will bring joy and meaning to your life. He knows the people who will walk with you, cheer for you, and help you fulfill your purpose. Trusting His timing means surrendering your own plans and believing that His are far better than anything you could imagine. Don't let loneliness define you. Let it refine you into someone who shines brighter than ever before. It's natural to feel the weight of loneliness when you find yourself in a season where connections seem distant or absent. You might look around and feel like everyone else has their lives filled with meaningful relationships while you're navigating the days on your own. But loneliness does not have to be a label that you wear or a shadow that follows you. Instead, it can be a catalyst for transformation, a refining process that brings out the best in you. Loneliness often feels like a void, an emptiness that's difficult to escape. It can be tempting to dwell on what's missing, to focus on the absence of companionship or support. But what if that emptiness is an opportunity to fill your life with something deeper, something more meaningful? Sometimes we are so busy looking outward for connection that we neglect to look inward. This season of loneliness may be an invitation to rediscover yourself, to uncover the strength and resilience that have always been within you. Refinement is not a comfortable process. It requires heat, pressure. Hey, sure. Think about the process of turning a rough stone into a polished gem. The stone must go through cutting, grinding, and polishing to reveal its brilliance. Loneliness in the same way can feel like a harsh process, but it has the power to polish and shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more radiant. It's in these moments of solitude that you discover the parts of yourself that you may have overlooked or ignored. When you let loneliness refine you, you begin to shift your perspective. Instead of seeing it as a punishment or a flaw, you start to see it as a season of growth. You realize that this time alone is not about what you lack, but about what you can gain. It's an opportunity to build your character, to develop a deeper sense of self-awareness, and to cultivate the qualities that will serve you in the future. One of the most powerful aspects of refinement is the ability to transform pain into purpose. Loneliness can be painful, but it's in that pain that you often find clarity. It's in the stillness of being alone that you can reflect on your life, your choices, and your values. You can begin to ask yourself important questions. What truly matters to me? What do I want to contribute to the world? How can I grow from this experience? These questions and the answers you discover have the power to reshape your life. Letting loneliness refine you also means learning to find joy and fulfillment in your own company. It's about realizing that you don't need someone else to complete you or validate you. You are whole and complete just as you are. This doesn't mean you won't ever desire or seek connection, but it does mean that your worth and happiness are not dependent on it. When you learn to enjoy your own company, you create a foundation of confidence and self-love that no external circumstance can shake. This process of refinement also prepares you for the relationships that will come in the future. When you take the time to grow and strengthen yourself during a season of loneliness, you become better equipped to build meaningful connections. You become someone who knows how to set boundaries, how to communicate effectively, and how to love from a place of abundance rather than need. You attract relationships that are healthy, supportive, and aligned with your values because you've done the inner work to prepare for them. Refinement through loneliness is not just about becoming stronger or more self-aware. It's also about deepening your connection with God. In the quiet moments of solitude, you have the chance to draw closer to Him, to seek His guidance and comfort. He uses these times to speak to your heart, to remind you of His love and purpose for your life. When you allow God to work in you during this season, you begin to see yourself through His eyes as someone cherished, valued, and full of potential. Loneliness can be a powerful teacher if you let it. It can teach you resilience, showing you that you are capable of standing strong even in difficult times. It can teach you compassion, helping you understand and empathize those who are going through similar experiences. It can teach you creativity, pushing you to explore new ways to find joy and connection in your life. Most importantly, it can teach you how to rely on yourself and on God, knowing that you are never truly alone. Your worth is not determined by the number of people in your life, but by the value you bring to the world. Society often measures success by the size of your social circle, the number of friends you have, or the amount of attention you receive. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that your worth is tied to how many people surround you or how popular you seem. But let me remind you, your value is not found in numbers. It's found in the unique qualities, gifts, and lights you bring into this world. Too often we allow external validation to define us. When relationships fade or when we find ourselves walking through life without a close group of friends, it's tempting to question our worth. You may ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have the connections I see others enjoying? But those thoughts are rooted in a lie. Your worth isn't dictated by how many people choose to walk alongside you. It's inherent, unshakable, and given to you by your Creator. Think about a diamond. Its value isn't determined by how many people admire it, but by its intrinsic worth. The same is true for you. Your value doesn't come from who notices you, who applauds you, or who chooses to stay in your life. It comes from the fact that you are uniquely and wonderfully made. You have gifts, talents, and a purpose that no one else can replicate. Whether the world acknowledges it or not, your worth remains constant. Sometimes it's in the quiet seasons when the crowd disappears that you're reminded of your true value. These moments strip away the distractions and force you to look inward. They challenge you to see yourself not through the lens of others' opinions, but through the truth of who you are. It's in these times that you can rediscover your passions, your strengths, and the impact you're capable of making. You have something to offer that no one else can. It might be your kindness, your creativity, your resilience, or your ability to bring joy to others. The world needs what you bring to the table, and it doesn't matter if it's recognized by one person or 1,000. What matters is that you show up fully as yourself, knowing that your contributions have value simply because they are yours. When you focus on the value you bring rather than the approval you seek, you begin to live with purpose and authenticity. You stop measuring yourself by other standards and start embracing the unique path that's been set before you. This shift in perspective is freeing. It allows you to step into your own power, to use your gifts boldly, and to create a life that reflects who you truly are. Your worth also isn't diminished by the challenges you face. If you're walking through a season where friendships are scarce or connections feel out of reach, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It simply means you're in a season of preparation, growth, or even protection. Sometimes God removes certain relationships to make room for better ones. Sometimes He allows isolation to help you focus on your calling or to teach you to rely on Him more deeply. Whatever the reason, know that your worth remains unchanged. The relationships you do form, whether now or in the future, will be more meaningful and fulfilling when they're built on a foundation of self-worth. When you know your value, you no longer settle for relationships that drain you or make you feel small. You seek connections that are uplifting, supportive, and aligned with your purpose. These relationships are not about quantity but quality. It's better to have one person who truly sees and values than to have 100 surface-level connections. As you move forward, remember this: you are enough just as you are. Your worth isn't something you have to earn, prove, or seek from others. It's already within you, waiting to be embraced. You were created with intention and purpose, and the world is better because you're in it. Whether you're surrounded by a crowd or walking alone, your value remains constant. So hold your head high, walk with confidence, and live with the assurance that you are worthy. Not because of who surrounds you, but because of who you are. Whether the world acknowledges it or not, your light shines brightly and your presence makes a difference.